Foreign Service, as Ambassador to the United Nations Economic and Social Council, and as Assistant Secretary of State of our International Organization Affairs. Dr. Keyes graduated from Harvard with a doctoral degree in government studies in 1979. A year before graduating, he joined the United States State Department as a Foreign Service officer. He went on to serve in various positions in the United Nations and became an ambassador to the United Nations Economic and Social Council, holding posts in Mumbai, India, and Zimbabwe. His love for our country, desire to see our foundings preserved and values restored led him to run for the Republican candidacy for president in 1996, 2000, and 2004. Dr. Keyes' knowledge and perspective are needed all the more today as we are constantly seeing an increase in the dismantling of our very foundation. There is a deliberate effort to erase the intent and origins of our country and change our very way of life. It is time we turn our attention to those like Dr. Keyes who can lead us back to where we are intended to be. Dr. Keyes' knowledge and perspective are needed all the more today as we are constantly seeing an increase in the dismantling of our very foundation. Folks, it's now my privilege and honor to introduce to you Dr. Alan Keyes.
Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made you free. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about the fact that we seem to have forgotten our success in obeying that injunction. I am here to talk for a moment or two about a phenomenon that some people seem to fear, but that I find it hard to take seriously. And why is that? Because the people who today claim that they are globalists, that finally the world is going to be united by their money and their tyranny and their insistence that we should be ruled by them, seems to forget what this country actually represents, what it was actually founded to pursue, and what, beyond all the hopes of the founders, we have already achieved. And what we face now is not the task of doing it, but the task of making sure that by doing it, we continue to advance that cause which they so nobly planted the seed for and advanced themselves. For they think that something more is necessary in order that we should see the world all gathered together, that people of every race and color and creed should stand on a common ground of justice and humanity for all human beings, that we should stand together in the fight to make sure that dignity is assured, that liberty is preserved, and that preservation redounds to the advantage of every single race and color and tribe and creed on the face of the earth. But I say that this was the reason that God called us into existence as a nation. And we have not ever backed away from that reason. Not when it would cost tens of thousands of lives, not when it regarded the trampling of every ambition of lucre and power. Our people have always grasped the nettle of God's intention. We have fought to make sure that justice would be advanced in His name, that people would be freed for His cause, that our spirits would rise together in the name of humanity to secure that which Christ has already achieved for all humanity. And though some people may think that our fruits were material fruits of power and money and industry, those fruits no doubt exist. But the great blooming in America, the great fruit in America, is what we have already inspired and what we still to this day are raising and cultivating and collecting in the hearts of all the people gathered here, who, though we may sometimes forget it, now are the parliament of mankind, now are the aggregation of people of every background, of every potential that human beings are capable of. And we have done it all, not in the spirit of our own aggrandizement, but in the spirit of fulfilling what was palpably the will of God when first he said, "Let us make man a will for all human beings to walk the walk of right and justice," that first uplifted the banner of our nation's existence in the eyes of the world, and that has continually fought in battles to get rid of slavery, in battles to raise up justice, in battles to achieve the true equality in which people, male and female, from all different walks of life, strive together, not in their own advantage, but in order to secure those advantages which we will only secure in the hands of Almighty God. I believe that the people who call themselves globalists have missed the point. They claim that somewhere in Davos or some other place, because their dollars work together, they have the potential to gather the future and destiny of mankind. Well, I'm sorry, I've spent my whole life, and I believe that I've spent much of that life pondering the gathering that has already taken place, that has brought the races and the colors and the nations and the kind together in response, not to the call of lucre and money and power, but to the call of dignity, to the call of successfully raising up new generations in the way that they should go, to the call of fighting in order to recognize that the kernel of human dignity may be expressed in all the variations of our colors and our backgrounds and our languages and creed, but that we can stand on the common ground of our debt to God's good will for humanity, and that all the people of the earth have already sent their representatives here, and we have been building the nation that they lyingly purport to create, the future that they lyingly purport to begin. For it began when the founders of the United States raised an unaccustomed call. I think the most important thing that happened in the course of the run-up to the American Revolution was when they decided to stop speaking about the rights of Englishmen and started talking about the rights of all men, the rights of all human beings, the rights of all persons. That has been our dedication. And has it taken struggle? I know it's very it's very popular for people, especially people with my background, looking back as I do, ancestors who were enslaved in this country and so forth. And they've taken advantage of it in order to suggest that somehow America was blighted by slavery. No, I think that the whole world was blighted by slavery. Have they forgotten this? I cannot remember, but I think that there's not a place in the world that has not at some time been tainted by the specter of powerful human beings enslaving all those who came within their power. That has been the saga of many empires. It has been the saga of many peoples. And it doesn't matter the color of skin. We get all obsessed. Oh, white people, they're the enslavers. No, they weren't. They were the enslaved. As a matter of fact, as I recall every now and again, I think the word slave is actually related to white people, because it has something to do with the Slavs who were being enslaved by people of color. I remember that, by people of color all over the Mediterranean. Apparently the Slavs were fairly good servants. And so you like to enslave the Slavs so they could work for you and produce their fairly good results, right? So what are we kidding here? Slavery has not been something that was suffered only by black Americans and my ancestors and my people. It is a scourge that bites today and has bitten in every generation of humanity's existence. People of all colors and all races and all creeds, because some people believe that the only power at work in the world is the power of their arms. The only power that's worth anything in the world is the power of their money and their ambition and their greed to tolerate what they have to tolerate of evil in order to impose their will. But I say we need to remember and never to forget that the banner that was raised by the people who founded the United States of America, the banner that inspired so many people to come to America in order to discover not the wealth and power, but the dignity and discipline that allowed them to know that they could raise up their children in the way that they should go, that they could raise up their families in a hope for a future that they would help to build, and that future would be secured by the mutual respect of all the others working in that same vein to do the will of God. I say we are still that people. I say that is still our destiny. I say that is still what will nurture the hopes of all humankind in the success of our country. Because we know that in truth, to whom does America belong? See? We think that America belongs to its people. But I'm sorry, the founders took that out of our hands when they decided to frame the Declaration in terms that offered the hope of human dignity to all. That's the remarkable thing about it. Somehow, whether they knew it or not, and some did, whether they cherished it or not, and some did, what was done when they penned those words, talking about God's endowment of all humanity, is what then I think meant that our banner would represent hope to all those being denied justice, wherever they were, whatever their color, to all those being denied their hope, all those being suppressed in terms of fulfilling God's purpose for the fruits of their lives. And that's why people gathered here, isn't it? What people did not come? What people was not moved and is not moved to our very day to try to join in what is the true prosperity, which is the prosperity of hope and labor and effort fulfilled, the prosperity of dignity, triumphing over squalor, the prosperity of truth, triumphing over lies, the prosperity of families, triumphing over lust and greed in order to build a community that now represents the hope and striving dignity of all the peoples of the earth gathered in one place to kindle that hope in the hearts of the whole human race. We have done so. It has flared up from time to time, and we have gone out in battle sometime to make clear our dedication that it should live, that it should spread, that it should be the hope of the world. But it still, in the end, comes back to us. For as we have gathered together, so we must assure that we will work together in order that our prosperity will set an example that shames the tyrants into realizing that we are no longer waiting for them to create a utopia. We have begun and steadily advanced that work ourselves. And we have done it in a way that has called to the hearts of people everywhere who come and are still coming in numbers, that encumber us with the burden, yes, of making sure that we secure that prosperity, by calling on all who come to remember that they come to labor in the name of all, not for such lucre as some may say they should sell their children to gain, but rather in the hope of that destiny which we believe God intends to be the righteous destiny of all humanity. Now, I can't ever get this cause out of my mind, and I think that that's because one of the first things I learned to love about this country was the Declaration of Independence. And I think it committed us to a path that a lot of people haven't understood. I understand it better because being on the receiving end of the hope that was created by the triumph over slavery, I cannot forget that that triumph was achieved in the name of all human beings. That was one of the geniuses of Abraham Lincoln. He didn't try to pretend that slavery was just the scourge of black Americans. He acknowledged that it was the scourge of all human beings, that it was the sin of all human enslavers, that it was the destiny of America to strike a blow that would resound throughout the world in the name of those who are willing to remember that though it persists, it will die at our hands so long as we fight it forever. And I think that that has turned out to be true for us. It has turned out to be true for our country. But the question before us now is, will it survive? And my last thought for this little disquisition is that we should try to remember every day our origins and what was, at the end of the day, the kindling that allowed the burning flame that became America to enlighten the world about the possibilities that as one race, not the white race, not the black race, not the Chinese race, not the Indian race, not the Native American race, but the race that encompasses all. We are now a people. What we do will be an example for people everywhere of what can be achieved by people anywhere if they have the heart that burns, not just for themselves, but for their brothers and sisters, ordained by God's will to create the destiny of our humanity. I end, I think, on that note. Why? I end on that note because it's the note that challenges us to move forward. What we have done is admirable, in my opinion. I know people try to be, well, we had slavery, and we abolished it. We freed the slaves. And not only that, I think I stand as a testament to the truth that it was not just the freedom of their bodies, it was the freedom of their hearts and their spirits and their minds and their love of God. And I think that we have achieved that kind of liberty for everyone willing to drink of it, no matter where they came from, no matter what their background, no matter what their race, they can share in that triumph over the enslavement of human beings by evil, by fear, and by anything that thwarts the will of God for our good and for the good of all humanity. Now, I know there are some people who think that because we say America first, we mean that you should put America first and forget the world. But I don't believe that. Every time I hear the phrase, I think that, yes, we were the first people to accept the literal challenge of building a nation that did not exclude any element of humanity. We were a nation that was the first that triumphed over the will that enslaves human beings instead of uplifting them, that challenges them with the prospect of the dignity they can kindle rather than the dignity we will destroy. We have grown to a certain power in the world, but we grew to it mainly because people tended to their farms and tended to their families and tended to the fate of their offspring as if the future of all the universe depended on their dedication to that cause. I pray that in this time, when the devil is assaulting us to believe that we will abandon our children so that they can become the depraved instruments of human lust and ambition, I challenge all of us to remember this destiny and to prove before the world that no, we have not forgotten our children, nor have we forgotten that it is our destiny to birth through them the hope still engendered by our very existence in the will and hearts of our fellow travelers on this earth. I think this is an exceptional nation. It has achieved exceptional advances for human hope. But I also believe that this is just the beginning. That there is a universe of human hate that we are still conquering and will conquer. That there is still a whole field of human hope that we are seeding and will bring to flourishing. And that we will not back away or quail or be confused by those voices who now imply that we must have their money and their leadership, or we shall not be guided in this task. We will eschew the false utopias, for we know that the true one grows already in the will of God from the human achievements and hopes that we have already demonstrated, not in the form of the white race or the black race or the colored race or the Jewish race or any other kind or native institution of our humanity. For the contributions have come from everyone, and they have come from everywhere. And now that we have proved as a nation what can be done when all of us pull together, we shall pull the world into that hope falsely offered by Soros and his money bags, but really achieved not by money, but by hope and striving and dignity and perseverance and courage displayed by ordinary folks who remember for all that the word ordinary means that you serve the ordinances of God, that you are true to the laws of nature and of nature's God, that you abide by justice and right according to God, so that we may not need the money and we may not need the backing. We only need the fervent courage of those who are willing to walk the walk that God intended when first he said, "Let us make man." And I have to end on that note because it is the note that inspires me to hope and to work and to offer the sacrifice of very life, if I must, in order to prove that others did not sacrifice their lives in vain, and that we will carry forward the work that they have, as Lincoln said, thus far so nobly advanced, so that government of the people, by the people, and for all people, concerted in our humanity, will triumph still and again, and never perish from the earth, because it will not perish from the love of God.